Southern California can expect more wet weather over the next week. The National Weather Service is predicting another storm to hit between Sunday and Monday night. This one is not expected to be as significant as past storms. Former talk show host Wendy Williams is in a facility to treat cognitive issues. Family members tell people that the 59-year-old is doing great and in a wellness environment. The Wendy Williams Show ended its run in 2022. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Wendy's Breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave four, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers are on the road tonight to begin the second half of the season. The Lakers are at Golden State. They won't have LeBron tonight. He's going to miss the game because of his sore left ankle. Keep your eyes on this situation. LeBron's ankle injury could become a problem for the Lakers. He had a week off for the All-Star break, and he's still not healthy. At the moment, the Lakers are 2 games out from qualifying for the playoffs. Tip-off tonight is 7 on TNT. The Clippers are at Oklahoma City, 5 p.m. tip-off. They start the second half with the third-best record in the Western Conference. They're only 2 games behind number 1 Minnesota. The Clippers are in the top 5 in 4 major categories. Kawhi Leonard is 3rd in the NBA in three-point shooting and 4th in steals. Paul George is 5th in steals, and James Harden is 5th in assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte with the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial. In a public opinion survey commissioned by KBLA Talk 1580 and conducted by Viteris, the black voters surveyed were highly enthusiastic about the March 2024 primary. The race for Los Angeles District Attorney is being hotly contested. Incumbent DA George Gascon's efforts to implement progressive criminal justice reforms have generated pushback from within his own office, the broader law enforcement community, and some in the general public. He was the subject of at least 2 failed attempts to qualify recalls. The concerns about crime are reflected in the polling results of black voters. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violent crime or have someone close to them who has been a victim. 1 in 5 black voters have personally been victims of property crime in the last 2 years. A majority of respondents feel less safe than they did a year or 2 ago, but they reject the notion that criminal justice reform has gone too far. This year, black voters will be looking for candidates who speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. Nearly half of black voters have an unfavorable view of DA Gascon, but his challengers are largely unknown. Nearly half of the black voters are also undecided, which means there's a clear opportunity for candidates to connect with black voters. Our poll makes 3 things abundantly clear. Black voters matter. Black voters are closely following this race, and the candidates for DA have a lot of work to do. KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to the mobilization and use of the franchise to empower our audience to identify and pursue their interests in advancing equity, inclusive representation, and multiracial solidarity. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. We welcome your feedback.
You know I love music. And every time I hear something hot, it makes me want to move. It makes me want to have fun. But it's something about this joint right here. This joint right here, it makes me want to... Let it go. Can't let this thing called love get away from you. Feel free right now, go do what you want to do. Can't let nobody take it away from you, from me, from we. No time for moping around. Are you kidding? And no time for negative vibes, 'cause I'm winning. It's been a long week, I put in my hardest. Gonna live my life
sounds of Mary J. on Tavis Smiley. Delighted to have you with us in this hour, and what an hour it's going to be. In this hour, we'll talk to the sisters, and in our next hour, we will talk to the brothers, as I mentioned at the top of our show today. In hour 3, young, black, and done with Biden. The issues for some black men that could decide this election. Strap yourselves in. We'll be joined by some brothers who were featured in a major Washington Post piece about why, as black men, they are done with Joe Biden. I'm not sure I understand all that, but we'll talk about it and hear their point of view in our third hour. So in the third hour, we'll talk to the brothers. But in this hour, the sisters, specifically 2 of the women who now make up the all-female city council in St. Paul, Minnesota, a rarity among large cities to have an all-female city council. Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson are members of that council. Councilmember Bowie, how are you today?
Hi, good evening, or good afternoon, I should say. I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Good to have you on. Councilmember Johnson, how are you today?
I am also doing well. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us on.
No, it's my pleasure to have you both on. So I'm sitting here in the studio looking at a photo of this entire council. And it is quite the photo to see all of these sisters who are really running the city of St. Paul. I should mention, and you probably both know this, I'm in Los Angeles. This radio program is heard across the country in syndication, but I'm based in L.A., and here in Los Angeles, it's a pretty big deal. We have an all-female board of supervisors. So the women who run the county of Los Angeles, and the county of L.A. is bigger than many countries in the world. That's how big the county of L.A. is. But there are literally 5 women who run the entire county of Los Angeles, and the CEO of the county of L.A. is a black woman. So there's some powerful sisters. Of course, Karen Bass is the mayor here in L.A. So we got a lot of sister power here in Southern California, in L.A., to be sure. But it was fascinating for me to see this story of how these women have pushed out these white men and others in St. Paul to run the entire city. So let me just start with you, Councilman Bowie, and tell me about your race, about your run. Just give me the short version of the Anika Bowie story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thanks for having us. My name is Anika Bowie, and I'm born and raised in the Rondo neighborhood. My family's been in St. Paul. We've called St. Paul home for over 100 years, so we are deeply rooted. I come from a family of business owners. My great aunt actually was one of the only and the first black women to have a liquor license and have an entertainment venue. It was actually the place where Prince performed before he was even discovered as Prince. So we're very homegrown, grassroots-oriented. The reason why, I was interested in even continue to serve my community in this capacity was just because of the need. For people who don't know the story, the history of Rondo, it was actually disrupted through I-94, gutted our actual economic business corridor. So it removed hundreds of homes and had actually extracted over $250 million of wealth from our community. And that's not even just race. That's just from that neighborhood, that community in general. But we've been very resilient. Like I said, my family's been here for nearly 100 years, and we've been resilient not just because we couldn't find anywhere to go, but because we want to continue calling this home, right? And, making sure we're advocating. And now I have the honor and the blessings, to continue that legacy of advocating, continue that legacy of making sure that we're building, strong wealth development tools, building community wealth, building more housing, and just making sure that people continue calling this home in St. Paul.
I've got some questions for Councilmember Anika Bowie based on what she just shared with me. I'll hold those for now, and when we come forward, I also want to hear, of course, the backstory to Councilmember Shaniqua Johnson. These are 2 of the sisters who make up the all-female city council in St. Paul, Minnesota. We're talking about the power of women, and we'll continue that dialogue when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement, a dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
You ain't got to push me too hard to play Prince any day, anytime, any excuse to play Prince. I'm all in. As most of you know, Prince was a dear friend of mine, and I miss him every day. Traveled the world together, hung out, all kinds of interviews on my platforms over the years, and I miss him every day. So when Councilmember Anika Bowie comes on this program and tells me that her grandmother had a club, had a liquor license way back in the day in St. Paul where Prince performed before we ever knew him as Prince. You got to tell me more about that story, Councilmember Bowie.
Oh, I wish I had more to share. I was just a little girl growing up, and like I said, it was a nightclub, and in the daytime they opened it up to community events. But I just remember the days of the dance floor, just seeing a space created for Black people, Black professionals too. When they leave work, they have somewhere to go, and just how really, it was like our business owners that, we have to thank to like creating these spaces for us to have these memories and also grant opportunities, for our stars and our icons like Prince to, have a chance at, those opportunities.
No, I love a Prince story, and I like you more now that your grandmother gave Prince a stage to perform on.
Well, I want to clarify with my
your great
aunt.
Great aunt. I'm sorry, I said your grandmother.
Yeah,
your great aunt. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But my aunt, how in the Black community we all related. So
I understand. No, I'm glad we want to get the record straight. So I'm glad you corrected me on that. Your great aunt. I received that. It's still your family, and you still gave Prince a platform. So we love that part of the story. That works for me. Let me ask you a quick question before I move on to Councilmember Johnson. You mentioned this neighborhood and the devastation economically this neighborhood received. Tell me a bit more about that and how that drives your mission and your purpose today on the St. Paul City Council.
Oh, absolutely. So, I started about a month and a half ago, and we just been trailblazing. About 3 weeks into my role as council was successful with, along with my colleagues, with passing a permanent street name change of reestablishing Rondo Avenue, the name, back to the street that that runs parallel with I-94. So that was just a step into the direction of establishing a heritage business enterprise district to where we can, put back the infrastructure and be able to, create a pathway forward for us to not only bring our businesses back, but as we are developing and bringing more housing, as we're looking at the changes particularly with, transportation and I-94, that we can use this as leverage to tell a greater story, right? So where the story of Rondo just doesn't exist in the past, but we're actually investing in its future, because the people who, like myself and many others, who not only share, that ancestry, but we want to be able to continue building generational wealth so we can pass down our homes and continue not only the legacy, but more so around the preservation and the strength of our city.
We are, in case you've just tuned in, talking with two of the council members on the St. Paul, Minnesota City Council. A rarity here because all the members, all 7, in fact, happen to be women. So it's an all-female city council. That is a rarity in large cities across this country, and we are honored to have 2 of those members with us in this hour. You just heard the voice of Councilmember Anika Bowie, and now I'm delighted to bring into this conversation Councilmember Shaniqua Johnson. Councilmember Johnson, thank you for your patience. So give me the Shaniqua Johnson backstory.
Yeah, one of the things about me is it's a little bit different than Councilmember Bowie in the sense that I was actually born and raised in rural Minnesota. So I grew up in southwest Worthington, Minnesota, of a town of about 10,000 people, and my family actually migrated from the south. So my mom is from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad is from Kansas City, Kansas. And so my dad came up to the small town to work at a pork plant, like so many families of color in the region, in the southwestern part, and it was kind of amongst the first Black African American wave to Worthington. There's sometimes articles that just talk about how they adjusted to welcoming African American families, and I kind of chuckle because my father actually lived in Worthington for many decades, and so before I even came about, so a lot of times I got in a small town where everyone knows everyone. I was really like, oh, that's Will's daughter. That's, I got the pass for being his daughter because everyone knew him. And so depending on what your relationship was like with my dad, well,
yeah.
But and that was kind of like my upbringing. I had both my parents around, and I actually came to the Twin Cities. I came to Minneapolis and St. Paul because of college. I went to the University of Minnesota, and I was the first person in my family to graduate from a 4-year institution. I'm the only person in my family right now that's touching politics at all. They come to me. My cousins call me, who are still in Memphis. My mom calls me, who's still in Worthington, to talk to me about voting and who they should be looking at and where can they find their information, because, a lot of my family members didn't have the opportunities that I had. They didn't have the opportunity to go to a 4-year institution. So a lot of their trajectory was different, including my dad, who had to work, very intense hours. And at that time, working at the pork plant was not paying what it's paying now, you know, but you made do with what you had. And so that's, you know, the background that I have, both from my mom being a certified nursing assistant and my dad working in the pork plant. Neither one of them made, like, you know, six figures or touched six figures. It was really around, like, making do with what you had and trying to make sure your kids have the best opportunity.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my brother and I growing up, like, that was what I went into, you know, with school with, was that if I was focused and if I put the time in and if I, you know, was the millennial that read a book, I could actually go to where, you know, where I could put my mind to something and actually be there. And so, you know, you fast forward to even where I am now, you know, I'm tied with Councilmember Yang, who is the first Hmong American to be in the ward that she's representing over on the east side. The two of us are 28 years old. And so when I came to the Twin Cities, you know, I was 18. So literally in a decade's time, I have been able to really dive into all levels of government. I've had a chance to work for Congress twice, once for then Congressman, now Attorney General Keith Ellison, and another for the Subcommittee on Aviation, in spaces where often you don't see Black women, let alone young Black women. I've intentionally been working to connect with community members, not just on the east side, but throughout our city, because for me, this is also a city that has very deep-rooted, you know, people who are born and raised in St. Paul. And there's a lot of people who actually are transplants, like me. So, you know, being able to actually bring that perspective and that similarity, especially among, like, immigrant families and East African families and the constituency that I represent is very diverse. We have a lot of different languages. We have a lot of different communities there. And so being able to bring that, you know, space of, hey, I've learned adaptability, but I've also learned the importance of having a representative who's going to listen to a lot of different people. And when you're in a town of 10,000 people, you just can't burn bridges. You just can't, like, tune out a population. You just can't do that. You have different conversations, but you have that one fallout with somebody, and then you're going to see them at the grocery store. Their son is the coach of the basketball team, their family, you know. And so we always kind of joke here about St. Paul small, but in many ways, like, St. Paul has felt like an extension of home for me because of the fact that it's truly like a small town in a big city.
I grew up in a small town, so I know that. You're right. You bump into folk at the post office and at the grocery store, so you can't get too much of a ruckus going because you're going to see them at some point in the day, if not the week. So I understand that. Keith Ellison, who you mentioned earlier, is a dear friend of mine. We've known each other for years. He's been a guest on this program a number of times, so you and Councilmember Booger are in good company, in good stead, given that Keith has been a regular guest on our program over the years. But let me I want to go back to two things you said, and again, I got stuff for both of you in this conversation. But let me come back to the point you made a moment ago to make sure I heard you correctly. So you right now, Councilmember Johnson, are 28?
Yes, sir.
Is there another, you said there's another council member who's also 28?
Yes.
Wow. So of the seven, so there are 7 women running the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, and 2 of y'all aren't even 30 yet. At least 2 of you.
That's correct.
Wow. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. That's a powerful that's a strong and interesting factoid about what can happen when you are young. And of course, Dr. King is the penultimate example of that when it comes to civic engagement. That you don't have to be old to make a difference. I was just talking in our last hour about why so many of our leaders in Washington these days, I didn't want to call them old, so I called them chronologically gifted. But whether you're talking about Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Nancy, I mean, it's a long list of them. We were just talking about the age of our leaders in Washington, and here now in this hour, I'm talking to a 28-year-old city councilwoman. She's not the only one who's 28, running a major city in this country. I digress on that point for now. Councilmember Bowie, let me come back to you because, and I'll get Councilmember Johnson to respond to this as well. This is an amazing story, and when I saw the story of these elections and how these 7 women of color basically are running the city of St. Paul, it's a good story. It's a great story. It's a feel-good story. It speaks to the power of young people, as I was just saying. 28-year-old young people speaks to the power of women. And while we live in a country, a nation, a society that is still very patriarchal, these stories are worth talking about. And so I wanted to have at least 2 of you on this program. The flip side of that is that we've had so much bad to cover coming out of the Twin Cities over the last few years. You see where I'm going with this. That I thought I really wanted to have this conversation just to change the narrative on Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities. I've spent a lot of time there over the years. I know the city well, cities. I have friends there, and of course Prince was from there, so I spent a lot of time at Paisley Park and Chanhassen hanging out with him. So I know the area relatively well. But I've just had it, as has the nation, and I'm sure y'all have had it, with all these negative stories coming out of Minneapolis about the police, St. Paul, whether it's Philando Castile. We all know, of course, George Floyd. So when you are an elected official in the Twin Cities, given the reputation, and it's always fascinating for me because, we regard, Minneapolis, St. Paul as progressive in their politics. And yet in these progressive places, we've had all this drama regarding the cops, the police, and certainly African-American men. So when you represent an area like that in a moment where the reputation of the Twin Cities isn't so great on the national scene, that feels like what, Councilmember Bowie?
Wow. That feels like, it feels like it's time for people to wake up and step into their power, and I just want to share, many of the people that you had mentioned, Attorney General Keith Ellison is a mentor to me. I had the honor to work on his reelection campaign as his political director and being like one of the only black women in leadership pretty much in those fields. But also, when we talk about, the murder of George Floyd and countless others, I was actually one of the youngest black woman that's vice president for the Minneapolis NAACP. So as we now are in this role as council members, a lot of people ask us like, well, how do you stay encouraged or how do you stay confident? And, I think, a lot of the issues that you have addressed, especially as black women, especially as myself living here, this stuff is really close to home, way too close to home. You talk about Philando Castile. I grew up stacking groceries for him. I grew up, his mom and my mom, Ms. Valerie Castile, being friends and just seeing literally a life being taken because of, so many different reasons. But one of them, as we get to like the to the core of it, for me, it was the reflection of there's just people who have not been positioned in power to actually speak on our behalf. And the people who have created these laws, the people who have created these policies, whether it's on the local level or on the state level or the federal level, have not had our best interest in mind. And like as you mentioned, yes, we are very forward thinking, right? Minnesota is always on the cutting edge of innovation, of technology, of development, mass development of wealth, but we just don't see equitable allocation of that, right? And just like, for me, growing up in a predominantly African-American neighborhood, I grew up with a great sense of pride because I knew the person who literally built the buildings, right? I knew the person who were literally the main labor force of our transportation and our Pullman porters, right? And how my community took a great pride around the contributions they given, not only to the state, but to the city and then to just like their economy, right? So I think when we are up against, great levels of injustice. We have witnessed, a history and a legacy of violence. We see that here. I think it really lights a fire under us to really stand up. And if it's not anybody else that's going to do it, then who else, right?
When we come forward, I want to probe a little bit more. I did not know when I mentioned Philando Castile, you were going to tell me what you told me, that I think you said you stacked groceries for him. I want to hear more about your relationship to Philando Castile and how you then processed that moment that we all saw across the nation when he was murdered, sitting in his car. We know that story well. But I want to probe that a bit further, if I can, your relationship and how you knew Philando and how you processed, again, that particular moment. And there's a question here that I want to put to both members of the City Council in St. Paul, Anika Bowie and Shanika Johnson. Who's the real Twin City? Is it the story of these 7 women of color who are running St. Paul are a rarity in a big city, or is it the story of Philando Castile and George Floyd? I'm not sure. I'm feeling sort of schizophrenic here about what the Twin Cities really is all about. We'll talk about that and a great deal more as we celebrate these 7 women, certainly 2 of them, who are running the city of St. Paul. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Illinois authorities are investigating an attack and fire on a Greyhound passenger bus. One person is in custody after allegedly starting a fire and stabbing another passenger on a bus in Franklin County, Illinois. A New York man has been sentenced after he was accused of violently attacking an Asian woman in Times Square, New York. 41-year-old Brandon Elliott has been sentenced to 15 years in state prison after pleading guilty in the case. Back in 2021, Elliott attacked Vilma Carey, a 65-year-old woman, when she was on her way to church. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris, on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers are on the road tonight to begin the second half of the season. The Lakers are at Golden State. They won't have LeBron tonight. He's going to miss the game because of his sore left ankle. Keep your eyes on this situation. LeBron's ankle injury could become a problem for the Lakers. He had a week off for the All-Star break, and he's still not healthy. At the moment, the Lakers are 2 games out from qualifying for the playoffs. Tip-off tonight is 7 on TNT. The Clippers are at Oklahoma City, 5 p.m. tip-off. They start the second half with the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. They're only 2 games behind number 1 Minnesota. The Clippers are in the top 5 in 4 major categories. Kawhi Leonard is 3rd in the NBA in three-point shooting and 4th in steals. Paul George is 5th in steals, and James Harden is 5th in assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
Are you ready to ignite your potential? Special Needs Network presents the CORE Workforce Development Grant, an opportunity designed just for you. You've been there for everyone else. Now it's time to be there for yourself. Whether you're a college student or a working professional, the CORE program is here to empower you on your journey. Get paid with free specialized diversity training, mentorship, and stipend to fuel your passion, power, and purpose in the behavioral health sciences. It's time to focus on your dreams while making a difference in your community. Don't wait. Visit snnla.org/core program to apply today. Be the spark that ignites connections. Your future is waiting. Again, that's snnla.org/core program.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
When you're talking about the Twin Cities, it gives you a good excuse to weave in some music from the Purple One, and he sounds as good as ever. Our guests in this hour are St. Paul, Minnesota Council members Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson. They are two of these 7 sisters of color who are essentially running the city of St. Paul. It is a rarity among large U.S. cities to have an all-female city council, and a couple of them are barely 28. So don't tell me. Greta Scott King told me many, many years ago when I was just a kid myself in college. I was in Atlanta when I very first met her for a student conference, and we, of course, went on to become friends and interviewed her many times over the course of my career. But she told me one day, Tavis, as long as you are black, you're going to be in a struggle. So the sooner you fall in love with the struggle, the better off you are going to be. And she knew that better than anybody, given that she and Martin were really young when they got engaged and involved, and the rest, as they say, is history. And so you're never too young to be persecuted, and you're never too young to be engaged in protest and all the things that we have to do to make America respect those of us who have been disenfranchised politically, economically, socially, and culturally. And I celebrate these two council members in St. Paul who are doing their part. I've said many times, and certainly in this month, I've said more than once, that we celebrate Black History today because somebody did something yesterday. And if we do nothing today, there is no Black History to celebrate tomorrow. So you can look at it as a conversation about women power. You can look at it as a conversation about making Black history. However you look at it, I'm delighted to have Council Members Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson on this program. Councilmember Bowie, before that break, you were telling me that you actually knew Philando Castile. Tell me more about how you knew him and how you processed what the rest of us all came to grieve, that sad story of him being in his car with family and being murdered, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we always knew, like what Councilmember Johnson was sharing about, growing up in St. Paul Small. Like, we know everybody, right? So Philando Castile grew up as someone as we knew as, like, Miss Valerie Castile's son. He lived and worked off Selby Avenue. He went to Central High School. I graduated from Central High School as well. So seeing that devastating video was very paralyzing, to be honest, paralyzing of just because this was after countless deaths across the entire country, right? And then in the wake of that, we saw this momentum building of a movement of people who weren't, didn't call themselves activists, didn't call themselves criminal justice reformists, just saw themselves as human beings showing up and giving compassion. Philando Castile also was known as serving food inside of J.J. Hill, which is a school that's actually still located in my ward. So, how I process that was what I know best in terms of just like how can something like this not happen again, but also like defining what the problem was, right?
Yeah.
And the problem in that in the case of Philando Castile being murdered was a lack of accountability and a poor professionalism that has been rooted in our policing model for years, right? For centuries. And we have never, ever addressed the problem. But at that time, I also was a teacher. I was an instructor for broadcast journalism at the School of Gordon Parks. That's also in my ward. I'm sure you probably know Robin Hickman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know she's going to love to hear this. But I actually was teaching students at the time how to tell their stories of what was going on in their communities. And I just remember seeing that Facebook Live, and that very next morning getting a memo from the school district that we could not talk about the murder of Philando Castile. We couldn't talk about it in our classrooms. We were basically like ordered a gag order that we don't have any permission to facilitate a conversation. And I was enraged because something as paralyzing as this and something as close as home in not giving not only the teachers but the students the opportunity to grieve. And this is something that's on social media, right? So we have no control of how far this had hit the airwaves. So I just became very frustrated, and, I'm an Aries, so, I get really hot-headed and was just, like, ready to do something, right? I'm like, we can't be silent and not talk about this. Two, we literally, like, this is the opportunity for us to come together to provide healing not only to the family, while we're providing healing, but we're also building on the momentum of like centuries of the civil rights movement and all these other movements around police brutality. So it was like a moving train that we had anchored to make sure that we actually had critical change. Some of the things that came out of it actually was we had created these initiatives with the Post Board, which is the licensing board that provides training to all of the officers in the state of Minnesota. So we had added more training in terms of being youth-centered. You have to have someone of color, more de-escalation training to where for all the new incoming officers have to have an internship within a community, have to have all these different volunteering hours to ensure that they're building relationships and really destigmatizing the very neighborhoods that they are, in.
Yeah.
So moving forward from that, I actually had the opportunity, this was in 2019, to serve on the Police Civilian Commission, which we investigate complaints brought forth by civilians around complaints around policing. So serving on that and increasing the recommendations. So
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No, that was a serious moment, and I'm not sure we're out of that moment. But when we all saw that video of Philando Castile, and then we of course saw the video of George Floyd, it was all too much. So when we come forward, I've had any number of conversations about this over the years with my friend Nakima Levy Armstrong. She and I have had conversations about this, and that is what is the real Twin Cities? Is it this celebratory conversation we're having now about these 7 sisters of color who are running the city of St. Paul, rare for a large city, or is it cops, maltreating black and brown people? I'm not sure I know what the real deal is. We'll talk about that when we come forward. And I want to get back to Councilmember Shaniqua Johnson. She mentioned that she's the first one in her family to go to college, a 4-year school. I know something of that. That is my story as well. And I'm fascinated by her being able to be the first to do that, and then being called, as it were, into public service. We'll talk about that as we celebrate these sisters who are running St. Paul on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
Hey Californians, are you ready to make your home ownership dreams come true? The California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program might be for you. First-generation homebuyers can get down payment and closing cost assistance along with a first mortgage to help you unlock the door of your new home. Applications open in April, so talk to an approved lender to see if you're eligible. Find out more at calhfa.ca.gov/dream or call 877-922-5432. A message from the California Housing Finance Agency.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Council members Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson coming your way right now. Two of the members of the all-female City Council in St. Paul, Minnesota, making history in Black History Month themselves. And I'm delighted to celebrate them in the remaining moments I have left. My time's getting away from me, so let me speed this up right quick here. Councilmember Johnson, you mentioned that you are the first in your family to go to four-year college. I know something of that in my family. I've got 9 brothers and sisters. I often tell this story that I was the first one to do it, but in literally one generation, you can change the trajectory of an entire family. I've got 9 siblings. I'm at the top of the heap, and so I end up going to college first. And then I look behind me. I got a brother that went to Indiana University, a sister went to IU, a brother went to Hampton, another brother went to Morehouse. So I jump out there first, and then all my siblings start to follow me. And so you can change the trajectory of a family literally in one generation. I'm curious as to how your being the first through then led to your responding to the call to be a public servant.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ties back in, to the questions and the dialogue that you and Councilman Bowie were having around, the Twin Cities. To be blunt about it, I think Minnesota and to your real space or your real question of what's the real story? I mean, the real story is that Minnesota has a very eerie past, a racist one at that, and in so many different ways, it has impacted a lot of people, including my family. A large part of my father's story was happened really towards the last 20 years of his life, right? And to put into context, when he passed, he was 96 years old. So, when you're looking at just the life and the trajectory that he had, he spent his whole life just so I could be in this moment. And there's a lot of just overall things that I see when I look at the Twin Cities and I look at my hometown, when I look at the state that we are in, because a lot of times I think it hits a lot of national news for a lot of the things that are negative. So for the first time, I'm actually really glad that there's a positive nationwide story that is capturing this council, but I think about how so many of the firsts in the Twin Cities are still happening. When I think about the first Black women, elected to the Minnesota State Senate with Claire Amuva-Baton, Zainab Mohammed, and Erin McQuaid, I think about how I'm 28. There's a 27-year-old mayor in St. Louis Park, Nadia Mohammed. And then there's Rosalind Harmon, who, was just elected to the mayor of Golden Valley. And many people stepping into these roles as a form of resistance. Yeah. And so when you look at just how much we have really had to kind of experience here in Minnesota, part of my story of even getting into public services that I looked around many political spaces. And I didn't often find Black women. I didn't often find women who had my shared experience. And I wanted to make sure that we were represented. And so when I stepped up for that, that was the part of it.
No,
the reason why.
No, I love that phraseology and your frame, actually, that you're getting engaged and involved in public service is in itself a form of resistance. I receive that. Getting engaged, getting involved in the political arena is in and of itself a form of resistance. And I want to close when we come forward by asking these council members, Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson, what advice they would give to Black women all around the country listening to this program about public service. It scares a lot of people. And yet somebody's got to put themselves up to run. And again, if you consider you're running as a form of resistance, maybe that's all you need to hear. Let's talk about that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Some people just know the best places to eat around town. Those are the people who know to choose Allstate. They know exactly where to go to get exactly what you're wanting. They know where to find the spiciest hot pot, the gooeyest brownies, and the tenderest, most flavorful portobello steak. Those people also know that safe drivers save 40% with Allstate.
Saving 40% is based on the national average premium savings for Allstate auto customers with a clean driving record versus those without. Savings vary by state and vary based on how you buy, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
I've got about 2 minutes. I'm going to split it 1 minute apiece to give final thoughts to these two council members. What they would say to black women listening to this program all across the country about the call to serve in the public service arena. First, you, Councilmember Shaniqua Johnson.
Yeah, of course. To be brief, what I would say is lean on the community that you know and the community that you have yet to meet, because people truly do come out of the woodworks to help you. And then I just would say, remember, white men occupied these seats for centuries, and they were never asked if they were qualified. They were never asked to show their credentials. As a black woman, you are definitely qualified to do this work. And it's not easy. You have to put yourself out there. So if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're going to subject yourself to whatever comes, fight like heck to make it happen and work really hard and, door knock, phone bank, do all the things that are required of you to make sure that if you're going to do that, if you're going to step out there, if you're going to be vulnerable, that it's worth it, and not just to win, but for the community.
I love that frame that Shaniqua Johnson puts out, that her service is in and of itself a form of resistance. Last word to you, Councilmember Anika Bowie.
Yes. Well, actually, I love this question. It gets me so energized because I just think about, the power of transforming pain to power for political change. That's have always been my mission, to where, we have a legacy of overcoming, a legacy of dealing with the oppressions, but we are not going to allow that pain to cripple us, to paralyze us, right? We're going to stand in our power. And I run an organization called Run Like Harriet, and one of my mottos is, if Harriet Tubman can run for her freedom and go back to save others, then you can run for our freedoms, and you can run for office, you can invest in your communities, you can make sure that you're organizing your people, ensuring that you're also organizing our dollars to where politics is everything, right? Is where we live, where we do business, and where we, raise a family. So run like Harriet, keep running out there, keep going, stay courageous, stay focused, and that you have a team, a network of black women all across the country who's rooting for you.
No, I love that. I love these two sisters. So one says that her service is a form of resistance, and the other says run like Harriet. I'll take both of them. They are council members Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson. Both serve on the city council in St. Paul, Minnesota, the all-female city council in St. Paul, Minnesota. These sisters are running things. Sisters are doing it for themselves and, frankly, for all the rest of us. And we celebrate the black history that they are making in Black History Month and beyond. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you for your time. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good to have you on. So now we spent an hour talking to the sisters. We will flip the script and talk to the brothers in the next hour. Young, black, and done with Biden, they say. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.